Kia ora, good morning everyone, Richard here, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to talk about probably one of the most controversial camera released for quite a while. It is the Fujifilm X-Half. I have seen a lot of hate online about this camera, but now that I finally had a chance to shoot with it, let me tell you what I really think about this camera, what I like and what I don't like. And let's start with the obvious. There are lots of reasons why people don't like about this camera. It's way more plasticky than most other Fujifilm cameras. Usually Fujifilm cameras feel solid and premium, but this X-Half, it feels more like a toy. But maybe because my expectations were pretty low after hearing some of the complaints on the internet, I found the build quality is actually better than I expected. It actually has a bit of weight to it. It feels much better than all my plastic film cameras. Still, it's kind of a toy, but it's a premium toy. Now let's talk about some of the weird stuff and issues, because yeah, there are some choices and issues here that I don't quite get. For example, autofocus, it is pretty slow. I thought for a camera with a small sensor, autofocus should be easy and pretty fast, but it's actually quite slow. There is a cold shoe mount at the top of the camera. I have no idea what you would mount on it. There's a switch at the back of the camera for the video mode, which honestly, I really doubt anyone would buy this X-Half to shoot video. So I feel this video switch just clutters the camera. And then the menu system and the touch screen. Actually, I like it, but sometimes it's just not very responsive. You press something and then you have to wait, or you have to wait and then you can press. The camera has a flash, but it is LED, so it works at night, but it is pretty much useless during the day. And don't expect you can use it to freeze motion like a proper flash. And then we have that fake frame advanced lever. I actually like it. I will talk about it a little bit more later. But I wish it had more resistance so it would feel like a real film camera. Right now when I try to pull that, it doesn't really give me that satisfying feeling. And if you want to transfer photo using the new X-Half app, I'm not too sure if it's because I was using a pre-production camera and a pre-release firmware, but the photo transfer speed is just quite slow. We are transferring some small JPEG files, so the transfer speed should be way faster. And then there's the price. Here in New Zealand, the price of the X-Half is pretty much the same as the XM5 body. So if you compare the build quality, the feature, and the things that you can do, the XM5 is just way better. The price of the X-Half just doesn't seem to make sense. But despite at least all these flaws and things that I don't like, I actually enjoy shooting with this camera. And when I was at the two Fujifilm X-Half events, one for private and one for public, I saw a lot of people also had a lot of fun shooting and playing with the X-Half. So why? Because I think it all comes down to expectation. If you are someone expecting it to be a baby X100, then this X-Half is a complete disaster. But I don't think that's what Fujifilm was going for. This X-Half wasn't created as a X100 replacement or a baby X100. This camera is for people that photography isn't about resolution features or autofocus or any other technical features. This X-Half is really about fun. Okay, now let's rewind a bit. When I was a teenager, there was a time that I didn't care or know anything about cameras or lenses or all those technical features. I just like taking photos. I want to take photo of my life, of my family, of my friends. I want to use camera to capture my stories. It really wasn't about image sharpness. I didn't care about what the best camera was. I just want to capture some special moments. And when I shoot with this X-Half, it gives me that exact feeling again. Normally, I'm super picky when I'm taking photos. Composition need to be as perfect as possible. Horizon has to be completely straight. I want my composition, focus, exposure to be all perfect in camera. And that's just something I pick up after shooting weddings for over 15 years because I want to deliver photos to my clients that are as perfect as possible. And also, the more perfect the photos are when I capture it, the less time I need to spend on post-processing. So these days, even when I'm shooting with my phone, I still shoot with the same mentality. But when I was shooting with the X-Half, the viewfinder is, well, if I say it nicely, so simple. It's so inaccurate, it's just like a framing suggestion. It reminds me of some of my cheap plastic film cameras, those with very poor imprecise viewfinder, and because of that, I was shooting with a very different kind of mentality. I was like, just shoot, don't think, just enjoy clicking the shutter. But honestly, those cheap and plasticky and crappy cameras were also the one that gave me some of the most fun photography experience. Now, don't get me wrong, I love sharp, detailed images and accurate exposure. I love technically great cameras, and that's why I love doing camera reviews, as I love playing with latest and greatest cameras. But at the same time, I feel like we have been obsessed with specs. Pretty much all the cameras these days are amazing, but they are all starting to feel like the same, as every camera company is pushing towards technical perfection in terms of image quality and features. So every camera company is trying to copy or learn from each other. So all the latest cameras, there's just so much going on. There are so many features, menus within menus. Even I got lost sometimes when using some of the latest cameras. With this X-Half, Fujifilm goes in the complete opposite direction. Like it or not, I fully respect it. They clearly choose to make something that feels raw and basic on purpose. And one thing that I really like is X-Half's user interface. That little screen at the back that shows you the film simulation, I love it. I love that it is touch sensitive and the screen changes depending on what you are doing. So it's like a mini context menu. You can use it to pick your film simulation, to confirm actions, to choose different actions. It's not perfect, but overall, it is very intuitive, it is simple, and it's fun. I always love Leica camera's menu system as they are clean and easy to navigate, but the Leica menu system is still based on the traditional menu that is designed for more serious photographer. But this X-Half's screen and menus feels like what a modern, user-friendly camera user interface should be like. Okay, now let's talk about the price again. Yes, it is expensive, I agree. And this is the topic that comes up every time that I talk about this camera with different people. Honestly, I wish this camera is cheaper, maybe 30% cheaper, and it would make this camera a lot more accessible, and there are more people that I would recommend this camera to. But the problem is, now in 2025, everything is very expensive. Developing a completely brand new camera, especially with a completely new user interface and concept, is not cheap, even if the camera is made of plastic. And after using this camera a bit, I found this camera has a lot of things that you just can't measure by just looking at the spec sheet. There are little touches everywhere that are focused on fun rather than the specs. For example, when you turn on the camera, the frame advanced lever would pop out, and after you take a photo, you can pull the lever to create a photo that combines two photos side by side, which is a bit like shooting with half-frame film camera. And you can also just push the lever to reveal your last photo.
Oh, that's cool.
However, it does make that play button at the back a little bit redundant. And when you are shooting in that film roll mode, you can't even see your photos until you finish the roll. And when you finish your roll, the screen would even simulate rewinding film, and I think that is just super cool. The camera has the Fujifilm film simulation, and there are also a lot of different filter effects that you can choose. Unfortunately, these two cannot be used together, which I think is a bit of a shame, but the film effects are better than I expected and pretty fun. For example, if I choose light leak, it is not actually the same effect for every single photo. I shot these photos one after another immediately, and if you look at the photos, you see the light leak effects are different. So all this tactile and visual feedback and little tricks may sound a bit silly, but when I was shooting with this camera, I found it just gave me a very enjoyable and relaxed shooting experience. And these are just some of the examples. None of these are on the spec sheet, but it adds up for both fun and development costs. I know if we compare the X-Half with the XM5 or maybe the DJI Pocket 3, which are all retailing at very similar price, the price of the X-Half just doesn't make sense. But you know what else also doesn't make sense? It's shooting with film these days, especially if you're shooting with those disposable film cameras. Here in New Zealand, one disposable film camera is usually around 40 New Zealand dollars, and the development and scanning is around another $25 or so. So total is about $65 to shoot a roll of film. And that gives you like 30 frames or even less. So that means it's around 2 New Zealand dollar every time you click the shutter button. And the image quality is worse than the photo that you capture using your phone's camera. But while it doesn't really make sense, apparently a lot of people really enjoy shooting with film cameras. I quite often see people, especially young people, shooting with disposable camera. So if you look at the price of the Fujifilm X-Half, it's about New Zealand dollar $1,600 here. So that's roughly the total cost of shooting 24 disposable film cameras. If you are someone who loves shooting with these disposable cameras, you can easily shoot 24 rolls in a year. And that is already the price of the X-Half. So yeah, I still think the price of the X-Half is a bit pricey. But at the same time, I really think this is the market that Fujifilm is aiming for. People love shooting with disposable film camera or with Instax cameras because the cost per photo is very similar. People who love shooting with these cameras definitely not because of the image quality or the tech specs, and definitely not because it is cheap. I think they just enjoy the casual and fun photography experience. And maybe also the fact that those disposable cameras are usually very small so that you can carry with you very easily, as you can just put it into any pockets. For those people, this X-Half could be a great alternative. You can get the digital convenience, you still have the film style fun, and you have unlimited reuse. And the camera is still small enough that it is pocketable. And with the X-Half, you also have the benefit that you can upload your photo to social media almost immediately, which is probably a very important thing for those younger users. So this video is not really my usual full in-depth technical review that I would test the sharpness, the image quality, high ISO performance, burst speed, etc. Because honestly, I don't think this is a camera that needs a technical review. This camera is not about sharpness or specs or dynamic range. It's 100% about fun. If you want technical perfection, frankly, this is not the camera for you. Photography doesn't always have to be serious. And honestly, I would like to see more camera companies try to create something that more towards this direction. To expand the market to more people, I think it would be great if we can get more people to pick up a camera and enjoy photography. Now I know some of you may argue that you can just pick up any other camera and you can just disable a lot of features and get the same result. But it's not really the same. For example, there are many phone apps that can also do some similar film simulation and give you similar results. Yes, the photo may look very similar, but that shooting experience is just very different. This Fujifilm X-Half is definitely not a camera for everyone. For a lot of people, this camera is too expensive and you can easily find a camera of similar price that delivers better image quality, more specs, more features than this X-Half. But whether a camera worth the money or not, I think it really depends on what matters to you the most. If photography to you is just about having fun and you really enjoy that ritual feeling, then this Fujifilm X-Half might be just the best camera in the market for you right now. So is the Fujifilm X-Half overpriced? Well, some people would pay hundreds or even thousands of dollars to get a concert ticket. And then there are also people that would pay hundreds of dollars for a Labubu. A lot of us would say that is waste of money. But if you ask the people who finally managed to get the Labubu that they like, they may tell you this is the best money they have ever spent. So what do you guys think? Do you still think the Fujifilm X-Half is an overpriced toy camera and I'm just talking nonsense? Or do you kind of get what Fujifilm was going for? Or would you even consider getting one yourself? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I love to hear what you think. Thanks for watching this video and I'll see you in the next video.